Pickle, we're continuing our series of looks at the 12 FBS programs in the state of Texas, our State of the Program addresses, bringing in some experts from all around the state to talk about it. And who better to talk about those Houston Cougars than our friend at the Houston Record Chronicle? We are joined by Joseph Duarte. Joseph, how are you, my friend?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. I appreciate your time joining us. Few people know the Houston Cougars program like you do. I think they're one of the most fascinating programs in the state right now because of what's going on with Dana Holgorsen and his wild first 2 years. And so I guess speaking broadly, we're doing state of the program addresses. What is the state of the program when it comes to the Houston Cougars?
Well, there's never a dull moment. You kind of hit that at the beginning with Dana Holgorsen, but the state of the Cougars is year 3 they need to win, and the first 2 years have been a struggle for a variety of reasons. They inherited a roster that needed some work in terms of numbers, in terms of talent, and they spent those first 2 years doing that, and then of course COVID probably wrecked their schedule more than anybody in the country, or probably one of the top 2 or 3, with 8 postponements, cancellations. So going into year 3, the state is that this is going to be a big year. The schedule sets up nicely. They should be able to contend for that 8 to 10 win range, which would be huge for Dana Holgorsen. He's now a $4 million a year coach, and they're paying big money, and now that they get into year 3, this is the first year I think that they can go into it saying that they have most, but not all, of the pieces in place to be competitive.
Holgorsen has obviously gone about things in a different way, and his first 2 years have been very up and down. I think there are, a lot of places coaches get 3 years, and by year 3 there need to be results. Do you have a sense of what happens if there aren't results? Of what happens if they do, let's say, have another losing season? Would Dana Holgorsen's job be on the line? I know that they've invested a lot into him, and they believe in his vision. Do you feel like a bad 2021 season could put him on the hot seat?
Yes, and when I say hot, it's just the level of it, whether it's inferno hot, or if it's lukewarm, or if it's sizzling. And I think right now, if based on the schedule that they have, it would be a huge disappointment to not contend for the American this year, not to be in that 8 to 10 win range that I mentioned before. He's got several things in his favor: is the amount that they've invested, the buyouts. He's a Tillman Fertitta hire type guy, so he's got that. I think if they struggle this year, it's not a break, and everything ends this year. I think he'd get one more year. So it's a matter of going into next year off of a really good year, and it looks like things are turning around and there's some positivity. Or if he has a bad year, that seat is going to be really warm, and it should be. And then Houston will be at a position where, are they looking at another head coach yet again after, going from Major Applewhite, and then before that, Tom Herman? It just right now it's hard to say, but they need to win, and they need to win now.
Talking with Joseph Duarte of the Houston Record Chronicle here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation at #TF Today. Joseph, the offensive side, last year I thought that the offense, let's say, fits and starts last year, and it seems like the one thing they feel like they have a good feel on is quarterback in Clayton Tune, but it's kind of all the pieces around Clayton Tune that needs to raise its game. Is that an accurate assessment of what the Houston offense is looking at going into the 2021 season?
Absolutely. There's some things obviously that they focused on in the spring and in the offseason with Clayton Tune, maybe to get him more comfortable, get him in that system a full year. They didn't have a spring last year, and, the games were so on and off. But you're absolutely right. The main thing, offensive line has gone through a really good makeover in recent years. They went out, they got a quality center from Louisiana Tech through the transfer portal, Cody Russey. They've lost some guys, but they feel like now they're in a situation where too deep. There's not as much of a drop off because there were times a year and even 2 years ago that they were putting guys out there that were out of position. They just didn't have the bodies, so that was the main thing up front. Now there are still some issues, at wide receiver. They've got numbers, but not a lot of production or experience. They lost a few through the transfer portal. They lose Marquez Stevenson to the draft. So, and even last week, Jeremy Singleton was, probably one of their best returning receivers, was contemplating whether to transfer. So they get him back. They get a Nathaniel Dell, who was their speedster from the JUCO ranks. And then they go out and get the Texas Tech receiver, Keyshawn Carter. So, they have 3 or 4 receivers. They really need to get some more. They picked a guy up from UCLA and another one from Minnesota. So they're really going that transfer portal experience route. And then finally, the backfield, that's going to be probably the most interesting area because, they've got about 4 or 5 guys over there, but none of them are these, big-time breakaway type guys. You've got a Mobacar who's sort of that tough yardage bruiser. And then you get a Tayzon Henry from Texas Tech who, a couple of years ago, he scored 4 touchdowns against Houston. So they've seen what he can do. But I think the most interesting guy is not on campus yet, and that's Alton McCaskill. He was one of the top-rated running backs from here in town in Conroe. And this kid could have gone to a number of Power 5 programs, decided to stay home. And he's the type of burner that they feel like could come in and play significant snaps immediately.
Maybe it's because it's Dana Holgerson and he's a kind of known as an offensive guru, but I feel like what the Houston defense last year did is kind of flying under people's radar. Arguably their best defense since 2016. It really took a step forward. It feels like they have a lot of those pieces back, a couple of key guys like, Peyton Turner, et cetera, notwithstanding. But this feels like this could be one of the better defenses in the conference. Is that the feeling around campus right now, that for all the hemming and hawing and wringing of hands about what the offense is going to look like, that the defense could end up being the real star of the show?
Absolutely. You hit it. Peyton Turner, they lose him on the D-line. They also lose their tackle machine, Grant Stewart, who got Mr. Irrelevant in the draft with the last pick. But they're back completely in the secondary. They bring back numbers there. At linebacker, they move some guys around. So they're really, they called the linebacker in the spring the heart and soul of the defense. And then you look at the D-line, and even though you lose Peyton Turner, they're finally at the 16 D-line scholarship limit that they wanted at that position, at that group. So that's the first time they had been playing with fewer guys at that position for the last 2 years when they made the switch from the 3-4 to the 4-3. So those guys now, they're too deep there. They feel like they can rotate 8 or more and not have a significant drop-off. So, yeah, this defense, the only thing that lacks and that they really need to change is, they need to be disruptive up front. They need to get that pressure that hasn't been there. And then this is a program that for many years was among the nation's best at forcing turnovers, and they haven't done a good job of that the last couple of years. So if they can get the pressure on the quarterbacks and they can force those turnovers, this is a defense that can really make some noise and cause some problems for some schools.
He's Joseph Duarte of the Houston Chronicle. Of course, nobody covers them. Nobody covers the Houston Cougars like Joseph does there at the Chronicle. Follow him on Twitter at Joseph_Duarte. Joseph, appreciate your time, my friend. Appreciate the insights, and it's good talking to you. Take care, my friend.
Always great to talk to you guys. Thank you.
There he goes. Joseph Duarte of the Houston Chronicle, giving us a state of the program address for the Houston Cougars.